In this lesson, we're going to learn some basic computer graphics. And we're going to do this inside Java Inventor with PenGraphics. And this is a common way of learning computer graphics that uses a virtual pin in the computer that we can instruct to do different things. So I'm going to go ahead and open this project that I created in a previous lesson. So I'll just say open. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Java School, and I'm going to go to Intro to Console Graphics. And I'm going to go ahead and launch this as a separate application so I can use this documentation to refer to in our lesson. And then I'll go back to Java Inventor and I'll close that run window to get my screen back, and I'll go back to the home page. So the first thing I want to do, page 1 tells me to go ahead and create a new starter file. So I'm going to call this PenTest. And so it creates my new PenTest class, which again is a Java console. And it's got our stub main method, which gets called when we run, and it does the print line. But what we want to do for this is we want to get a pen object and tell it to move. So the pen object is of type Java pen. So I want to declare a variable for convenience here. So I'll go ahead and delete our print line here, and I'll say Java pen is equal to get pen. And then I'm just going to tell the pen to move. And so I'll hit run here. And it just creates a pen and it moves it across the screen, so we get our line. So this is our first simple computer graphics. So the next most basic method is turn. So I'm going to say pen turn, and then I'm going to tell it to move again. And I'll save this and run. And so now, as expected, we get a move, a turn, and a move. So we're doing some basic drawing here. So obviously, with just these canned methods, we are limited in what we can do. But there's versions of these methods that take parameters. So the move method has a parameter that takes a distance. And the distance is in printer's points from the old-fashioned printer world. And a printer's point is 1/72 of an inch. So 72 points is an inch. So if we want to move 2 inches, we can say move 144. Now the turn method takes an angle, a degree angle, just like from math class. And so we'll say turn, if we want to make a right turn, we'll turn 90 degrees. If we wanted to turn back on ourselves, we'd turn 180. Well, let's just do that, and then let's move down 1 inch. So I'll save this and hit run. And so we move and turn and move. So, so from here, we can just keep creating these instructions here. And so let's go ahead and create a box. So I'll say pen turn again, and I'll say 90 degrees, and I'll say pen move again, and I want it to move 144 back, and then I want to turn again 90 degrees, and then I want to say pen move again, and I want to go up that inch again. So now when I run, we have our box. And then we can further customize by doing something a little non-standard. Let's go ahead and say pen turn 45 degrees. So now that the pen is pointing straight up, if we turn 45, we'll be going to the right halfway. And so let's turn that, and then let's move up some distance. And I'm going to go with 105 here. And then I'm going to say pen turn, and I want to turn back towards my box, and I want to move again. So let's see how close we got to building a house here. So turn, 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 up and down. So we have a basic house. So from here, we can put in whatever methods we want to draw whatever we want, kind of in an etch-a-sketch fashion. So we'll move on, and this is getting a little bit advanced, but just for the fun of it, to see how extensible this is, we could actually draw a circle, because the circle is basically made up of a bunch of small lines, or can be made up of a bunch of small lines. So here I just want to say pen move 1, and then pen turn 1 degree. But what I want to do is I want to do this 360 times, because I know there's 360 degrees in a circle. So I'm going to create what's called a for loop. And a for loop takes a variable declaration. So I'm going to a counter, and I'm going to go I from 0 to 360. And each time I want I to increment. And so I++ is the way we tell the computer to increment. So I will put these two commands inside of this for loop. And so now we're basically telling the pen to move and turn, move and turn, move and turn 360 times. And let's see what we get here. So we get a simple circle. So let's go ahead and move on. So the pen supports something interesting, where every pen method actually returns the pen. So if we wanted to, we could say Java pen2 is equal to pen.move. And then just to verify that's the same pen, let's go ahead and say print line, let's see, pens are equal. And of course we have to test for that. So let's say if pen is equal to pen2, then it'll print line here. And I'll go ahead and get rid of our circle. And we'll save that and run. And so it'll create our pen and move it. But it tells us those pens are equal. So it's the exact same pen. So instead of creating a bunch of separate methods here, let's tell the pen to move and turn and move and turn and move and turn and move. So now we have one line of code here. I'll save that and run. And that one line of code does the same thing that all those other lines of code did. It draws our box. So the method chaining is very useful for our pen here to write more concise code. So we'll move on. So now we have a new method, is the jump method. And so what the jump method does is it does a move but without drawing. And so we can use this to, for instance, like draw a dotted line. So let's say pen move 20 and then jump 20. And then I'm actually just going to copy this here. Paste, 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 paste. And I'll terminate my line with a semicolon, and I'll delete that other line. So now we have a bunch of moves and jumps. Let's see what that does. So here we've created basically a dashed line now. So with our move and our jump and our turn, we can basically create just about anything made up of straight lines. So here in the example, we can of course, for an exercise, create whatever we want. But here's an example of creating Bob. So let's go ahead and move on. So now we can, there's a few more methods of the pen. And in fact, it's probably a good time for me to just click on the pen here. And as we talked about in a previous lesson, sometimes when things are selected, they get underlined, and the documentation button shows up here. So if I click on that, it'll bring up the documentation for our pen. And we can see, what does our pen do? So here is our, here's our move method, and a move that takes a distance, and our jump methods, and further down are our turn methods. We can also do things though, like we can set the color, and there's a version here that'll take a string, like our console does, And there's also a version, a method called set width that'll set the width of the pen. So let's go ahead and do some customization here. So we'll create our pen, and then we'll say pen.setColor, and let's go with brown. And then we'll say pen set width, and let's go with 25. And then let's go ahead and do a move and a turn, and create our box again. And I'll go ahead and save and run. And so now it draws, and you notice that the color is a different color, and the width is now much wider. So, and then we can also set the image, although currently there's really only one image. So let's go ahead and say pen set image, and if we do capital C AR and save that and run, now instead of our pen, we'll get a car. The car drives around. So, so we've actually been drawing in the context of a coordinate system. And when we move across, just like in mathematics, we're moving in a coordinate system defined in these printer points. And as we specify larger X printer points, it goes to the right, and larger Y, it goes down. And so we can actually show the coordinate system here. There's a console method called setDrawGrid. So let's just go ahead and tell the console to set draw grid true. And now we save and run, and we see the coordinate system. So in the upper left-hand corner here, it's 0, 0, and off to the right, it's 496 across, but 0 down. Whereas on the left here, it's 0 across, but 420 down. And this will actually change as we resize the window here. So the point of this is that we can actually do some more finely specified drawing with a couple of methods called move to and line to. So now, instead of just moving and turning, let's go ahead and say pen move to 100, 100, and then pen line to 300, 100. So we'll just move to the right a little bit. And we'll save that and run. And so, so just like in our first one, we told it to go to 100, 100, and then to draw a line to 300, 100. So, so let's go ahead and make our box again. So that's line to the right, and then we can line to 300, 300 to get to the bottom right corner, and then line to 100 across and 300 down. And then there's a final path method called close, and this will basically tell it to go back to the last move method. So let's save this and run. So now we have a finely specified box that's going to an exact point here. So, and that is the end of the introduction to PenGraphics. With just those methods, we can now do some pretty extensive drawing.